Now what we are going to discuss into the next class, okay, and that I will give you a very brief introduction. It will not be very brief, it will take some time. That is how the threads work in Java. And to understand the thread works in Java, there are thousands of models you need to understand. But basically, it's good if you can understand two models. That is, the thread can work into preemptive nature and thread can work into sharing nature. Okay. I think one or the other, most of the people have used, but preemptive model actually most of the people don't use. What is preemptive model? Preemptive model means the thread will have different priorities, and when thread is working actually, the high priority thread can tell, okay, my turn is the next turn. Actually, all the low priority thread guys just go aside. Okay, so thread execution depends upon the priority of the thread. This was a very good model when we were running onto the single core machines, and we were actually trying to simulate this environment by some kind of round robin scheduling or kind of cyclic scheduling. Okay, so we used to prioritize the thread and we used to tell, okay, this thread will take this much time and this thread will take this much time. But there are a lot of problems with preemptive model. Actually, the biggest problem is something like starvation, that the lower level threads or the low priority threads or the daemon threads actually will never get to execute only, right? So they are like, they are just starving. They are sitting and starving. There can be some important work which they are doing, but they are just like low level threads, like the IO threads. They are not kind of the processor running dudes. Okay. So IO threads and all, no one gives a damn shit. Okay. But they are important at the point where the IO operation need to be done. It is very much important. Okay. So Java also provide you the second kind of threading model, which is called sharing thread model. Okay, sharing thread model is a very good, where we say that we all are friends and we all will work together to get the work done. So how this works? Let me enter into the critical section or the shared section, and when I will done with my work, I will say, guys, I am done with my work. You can come. Okay, and you all know that what kind of keywords actually we deal in the Java to deal with the sharing system, right? Any guesses?
Synchronized.
Hmm? Please come up again, little louder.
Synchronized.
Um, yeah, what are the keyword when the thread say that, okay, I am done, and you other guys can enter into the section?
Wait and notify.
Very good. Who have done? Okay, thank you. I will not ask because you all know the answer actually. So yes, wait and notify. Wait and notify. Notify all. There are thousands of interview question. What is the difference in notify and notify all? And definitely when we will come into the next class into the detail of this, I will show you the code actually, what is the difference in notify and notify all. Okay, so why to listen other people when we can see the code and we can understand the code? Okay, so this is the basically two different sections which we will see that how the thread works with the priority. So every thread will have a thread priority. Okay, I don't know, the code was open for thread also somewhere. It's not a big deal. Thread.java JDK code, you should just say, and you should read to here. And do you see any kind of priority given to the threads? So yes, there is something called int priority. Okay, there is something called a lot of details like the stop time and all kind of, and then there are a lot of other volatile things like where thread names and all goes. So we will discuss about all these things. Nothing to worry about it. And this will lead us to get into the API for the next class, where we will see that how the different model work, how the blocking of the thread works, how the notify work, how the running work. Okay, and we will also see some kind of tools which can actually give you the thread dump and tell you, okay, what are the basically problem with the thread deadlocks. Okay, still I feel most of the tools are good to understand the basic deadlocks, but they are not really capable of understanding the production level deadlocks, because in the production actually deadlock don't happens. Okay, so many of the time some kind of starvation happens or some kind of thread comes into the blocking condition, but it is not waiting for the other threads to waiting for the other threads to actually unlock the resource. Okay, so normal thread deadlock, which most of the tool understand, is when someone want to acquire some other lock and this guy also want to acquire some other lock. Okay, so those kind of scenarios are not very common. Okay, so we will see into the tool. And the second thing which I want to cover is this, that what happens when you create Java threads. Okay, what happens to the underlying architecture? So it's complicated. When you create a Java thread, what happens that you call a method run, okay, or you say start, and then start actually call a native method called start 0. I will show you the whole code. Okay, and then depending upon the operating system, we actually map the threads. Okay, so let's talk about Linux. So in the Linux, generally it happens one-to-one mapping. So if the Java will say, Linux boss, I am requesting you to give me 4 threads, Linux will take, okay, please take this. Okay, so Linux will go and it will call its pthread and it will give 4 threads to Java. Okay, but is this one-on-one mapping happens everywhere? Is it one-on-one mapping happens for Windows also, for other operating system also? We will see into the detail, because everywhere it is not true. Somewhere it's end-to-end mapping. Okay, so what happens that when you are demanding 500 thread, probably the underlying operating system will create only 100 threads for you, but they will behave like they are actually creating 500 thread for you. So they will handle it. Okay, so these all things I will show you. I will definitely show you the till the p threads of the Linux and how the Windows thread, just considering the two operations, I mean two OS, because Mac and Solaris will have very similar to pthreads kind of work. So I will just show you how the pthreads work and how the Windows thread work and how the code goes internally. And then I will also interested in showing you the recent project which we are working. Okay, so we are working on a project which we had a talk already in the past, where we are creating more lighter thread than the Java threads. Okay, and the complete scheduling of the threads is actually in the hand of Java. Okay, and we have seen the performance. Looks like it is fine to create up to 1 lakh, up to 2 lakh threads. Okay, I mean up to 1 lakh threads, up to 2 lakh threads. I can show you the memory footprint is so less because the threads are in our control and the performance is remarkable. Okay, so we will see all these things into the detail. Yes, Sanjay, that I will discuss about the Fiverr into the details. Okay, so that is the project Fiverr actually I want to discuss. We will discuss into the next class. Also, going forward, we will see that what is the concurrency package that has been introduced in JDK 5 under JSR 196. Okay, so yeah, if you guys want to do some homework from your own side, then JSR 196 or 166, I'm not getting it. Yeah, JSR 166. Okay, you know that Dougley is the guy who has written this book, and they runs a team called JSR 166 concurrency, and they are responsible to add all the packages, the concurrency packages into the JDK. Most of the packages has been introduced in JDK 5, and still there are a lot of work going into JSR 166 and the corresponding JSR. Also, I am interested to tell you that there should be JSR 113. Yes, please go and read JSR 113, which will explain you the complete, there is a PDF here, you can see, it will explain you the complete Java memory model. Okay, so why this JSR came? Because before JDK 1.4, I believe, the Java memory model was broken. Volatile was not working as the word means. The final was not working. Okay, so there are a lot of things actually which was broken and which got fixed into the JSR 133 Java memory model. Okay, so this document, again, the color of the document will not look very attractive and pictures will maybe less, but it will give you the complete detail, and I am kind of sure that you can understand this document. Okay, I mean we are in a good shape to understand this document. Okay, so That's it from my side, Satish, for today. Okay, as I told you that I will not go till 12 o'clock today because of some other commitments. So I will just take a question for a few minutes and then I'll wind up this session today.
Okay.
Sid, you want to go for your book? We'll just take the question and then I will request you to share your screen.
Sure, Vaibhav. Thank you.
Guys, question, concerns, queries?
There are some questions. I don't know whether we answered it.
Can you please ask?
Is there any relationship between threads and number of processors?
No, there are no relationship between that. Okay. In parallelism, we create a relationship. Okay. When you are running something like parallel streams, we create that relationship. But when you are running concurrent programming, there is a formula. I will probably share that formula next week. That can tell you that how many number of threads you should create on a given number of processor. And unfortunately, that formula is not straightforward. So it is not like 100 processor, 100 threads. Okay. So as the number of processors increase, the number of thread actually don't increase that high because of context switching and a lot of other managerial work. Okay, I will share that formula. It's little complicated, but it will give you a very good result. Any other questions, Satish?
They say that thread creation is an expensive process and it's better to use thread pool instead of creating the threads whenever required. So if you can explain
yes.
what's
So
required,
thread
it would.
pool and complete executor framework we are going to have into the next class. Okay, so we are going to first we need to understand that what is thread pool. Actually, you may be knowing it, but I really want to show you that how actually thread pool are built and what is the reason that thread pool has been built. So till we will not understand that, I will not comment on this, but yes, you should not keep creating threads. So what you should do, you should use thread pools and then you should reuse the thread. Okay, because the architectural problem with having threads. So thread have their own kind of storage data, local data. Okay, so we play a lot of these tricks from kind of from the CPU to the processor to the core to the thread, that we kind of give some kind of special data set for them to handle, some kind of a special region for them to handle. Okay, so whenever you create actually thread, okay, you have to go with all these kind of things. Okay, so it's better to reuse a thread from the thread pool, but that also have few disadvantages. We will discuss that into the detail. Okay, I'll show you that how actually the threads getting reused and how is the performance difference when a thread will be reused from the pool or when you are creating a new thread. We will check it out. So one thing I want to tell you before closing the session, sorry, I have taken again this PWD. I am in fast debug. You don't have to really be into the debug mode, but you need to go to JRE and lib and server and this is the file called HS disassembler AMD64 dylib. So dylib is extension of Mac machine because it's a dynamic library. It will have .so file or .lib file accordingly Windows on Linux. So you guys can go, and if you will get this file downloaded, if you just go here in the Google, you write download this file. There are a lot of GitHub repository where you can get the hotspot disassembler. Okay, when you will get the hotspot disassembler, actually after parking this file into GRE lib server, you are good to run any of the commands like print assembly code. So it will actually show you the assembly level code. Okay, and you have to pass this, which say the disassembly bytes. And I have actually stopped unbiased locking. I will explain you what is biased and unbiased locking in the later classes, but you can understand that generally what happens that we will be biased towards some locks. So if a particular lock has been acquired by that particular object, we will tell JVM that most probably this guy will again come back to acquire the same lock. Okay, so give more priority to this lock. That is called the bias lock. By default, bias lock is true, but in this case, I have stopped the bias locking because to see the right output. And in the compile command, you should say print, and you should say the class name and whatever the method name you want to run, and then the class name. Okay, that's it. So when you are running this, you are good to see the complete generally, I always run things from bin. I know a lot of people don't do that. Okay, so you you can see the complete instruction set as per this processor, means whatever the processor I am running on Intel x64. Okay, so it will show me the descriptions as per the Intel x64. Okay, so it can tell you the complete set. Now you can go and you can keep checking where are the locks, semaphores, fencing, M fencing, and all those kind of things you can keep checking. I mean, most of the time we spend our time into this.